Hello and welcome to our second NL full-time podcast season preview. Hopefully out there already and available for your delection or whatever the word is. I can't think of the word. Is our National League season preview. Tonight we're going to review and cut that bit out if we can. Tonight we're going to preview the National League North and the National League South. Now, I'm Rob Worrell. We do actually have the full team here momentarily while we preview the National League North. The top league and the South are going to sandwich our fourth member of our team, Christian James, Boston Stats, who finally, I'm delighted to say, joins us for this one. Good evening, Christian. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, Rob. We were relying on a quick finish in the cricket or some weather to help us out, and we certainly weren't going to be rained off, were we? But here I am now for the North, and yeah, great to be back and part of a full cohort.
For those who perhaps haven't caught the other season preview yet, or maybe not too familiar with NL full time, we are a team of four. I'll introduce our other two members shortly, and we cover the three national leagues, and we've got quite a good balance. Christian is involved with Boston. I'm involved with Aldershot. They actually meet on the opening day, and we talked about that game in the other preview pod. And then we've got with us from the National League North, brilliantly introduced yesterday. I don't know if we can do as good a job again, but Rich Wharton, aka Dickie, or Bucks Writer. Take your pick. Good evening, Dickie.
Yeah, good evening. It's good to see you. Yes, AFC Telford United. My team, my beat, I cover them for various local media. So, naturally, my strength is the National League North, the division we find ourselves in.
Definitely my weakness, but that's why I'm really glad we got the whole team together here. And that includes, of course, Joe Pope from Off the Line blog. And Joe is across just about every division of football in this country, way beyond even the National League. So the National League North, easy one for you, Joe.
Less easy than the National League and the National League South, but yeah, good to be back on and talking about it. As ever, a couple of shocks, I think, with my predictions. But yeah, looking forward to dissecting what looks to be another tough division.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. Dissect or delect, whichever you like. Joe is a Torquay United fan. So that's what gives our team, hopefully, the balance. Two from the top league, one from the North, one from the South. Feels like we're on countdown, doesn't it? All right, on we go then with the National League North. And let's talk initially about potential title winners. In our other preview pod, we announced our fan panel. We've now got 22 of the 24 National League clubs represented by at least one respected supporter, journalist, or content creator. We haven't quite extended that to the North and South yet, so you're really only going to get our opinions, or some of the chaps may quote from things that they've seen or read themselves if they think it's relevant. Dickie, starting with yourself, how many? Let's just do a quick count. How many teams do you realistically think, without naming them, can compete for the National League North title?
I reckon it's about 4.
Joe?
Yeah, I may extend that to 5, but I don't think we're much beyond that. I think there's a little cluster of teams that I would say are just that little bit better than everybody else.
I'm going for 4 as well. Christian?
Yeah, I'm a 5 as well. I think, yeah, it's going to be a best of the rest scenario for the bottom end of the playoffs.
Interesting. One or two of the teams that might be amongst these favourites are teams that were in the National League last year and came down. Let's start with their potential. Morecambe, a little bit of an unknown, and a bit of bottoming out has got to happen as quickly as possible, hasn't it? It's got to be refresh, new, and a new tilt at it, Dickie, hasn't it? Brackley, of course, have been in this league for a very long time and only managed the one season in the league above.
Yes, they did. A little bit like surely a few seasons ago. I think Brackley had been knocking on the door for such a long time, and then unfortunately, finally, when they got there, maybe found it wasn't quite it, the promised land that they'd hoped. I think they knew it was going to be tough. They stayed a semi-professional team, and it was somewhat up and down with them. But yeah, unfortunately, couldn't sustain it and find themselves back at the level they were at, and with quite a lot of change having gone on as well under manager Andy Wing in the summer.
Absolutely. I don't want to be presumptuous. Morecambe and Brackley are two of my four. Are they two of your four, Dickie, or not? Lost him. I think he sensed he was dragging and took his video off.
You might get a good answer out of me if you ask me the same question, Rob.
I think Dickie might be back. I can hear him chuckling.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, I'll just pause. Did you hear the... Oh, yeah, I asked. So the question was, I didn't want to be presumptuous. Morecambe and Brackley were two of my potential 4 title winners. Are they yours? Are they in your...
Brackley aren't one of mine, no, but Morecambe are.
Okay, tell us why Morecambe then, and what do you think about them?
I think the fact that Morecambe is staying full time. I know things aren't entirely settled at Morecambe, and I think they will also have to contend with that factor of being the team or one of the teams that everybody wants to take down a peg or two. I think, I repeat myself on this so often, but teams that have found themselves in National League North and perhaps have felt that they're a bit too big to be there, have tended to stay around there a bit longer than they'd wished. So I don't have a sense of what the mood is around Morecambe in terms of, whether they feel it's in any way kind of unjust that they are where they are. It isn't. They are where they are for a reason. But if they get their heads around that quite quickly, then I think they've got a really good chance of being in the frame, of giving themselves the best possible chance of getting back up.
Yeah. Joe or Christian, if either of you or both of you have got Morecambe in, your thoughts on Morecambe. Joe, you're normally quite across the the recruitment side of things, as is your fondness for such things. How have they done? I mean, they've obviously lost quality players like Popov and Aziz and Nolan.
Yeah, they have, and I think that's going to be the key for them, is whether or not they can actually replace them. They have brought in some good players. I like some of the business that they've done. I really like Will Smith at the back, defender formerly of Halifax and Harrogate. Cameron Cox as well, who was at Boreham Wood last year when they got into the playoff final. The one that particularly stands out for me is Joe Garner, who is the perennial S-house of the division, usually, and is always a safe bet for a goal. And I think he'll be really good for the level. They've brought in largely young players. I think that's fair to say, with that sprinkling of experience, the likes of Taylor O'Kane, a really young prospect who we've probably not seen the best of because he's gone out on loan from AFC Fylde, but I think with a full season at Morecambe can be one of the best midfielders in the division. I think the problem for them as to why I haven't gone for them as high as potentially some is their squad perhaps lacks the depth. Adam Lakeland said it himself in the week. He said, as it stands, he's not actually happy with the business that he's done this summer. And he feels that he's short. He feels that the quality beyond the starting 11 isn't there. And it's very difficult to make a judgment on what Morecambe could be, given that they haven't got the players through the door. So I think Adam Lakeland is a fantastic manager. Every team he's been at, he's got success, be it at Farsley, Curzon, or Halifax, and Kinglands Lynn as well. He did an okay job. But I've actually put them to get in the playoffs, but to finish the season in 4th.
Okay. And Christian, your thoughts on Morecambe? Did they make your potential title contender?
They didn't actually, and I'm conscious, and we've said this about anybody, they could well do it. I think Morecambe could well do it. They could well have a very good season and bounce straight back and run away with it. But I actually had them in, I mentioned 4 or 5 and then a best of the rest. I had them in that best of the rest shake-up, and In my 1 to 24, I had them just missing out. It's the uncertainty, isn't it? There's the off-field question marks. Am I right in saying it's 3 back-to-back relegations? That's certainly 3 and 4, if not. That's a slide that's really difficult to arrest. And I just think Morecambe fans, and it's not a judgment of Morecambe fans, it's natural. This is what happens when teams drop into the north, as Dickie mentioned. I mean, I think back to York and Stockport. You can easily look down your nose at half the division. And I just feel that Morecambe are probably not even 2 or 3 results away from a crisis at any point. I think they get a poor home defeat against a team they've never heard of and think they should be trouncing early doors. And I think all the wheels fall off. And there's too many question marks for me. Joe's articulated a lot of the on-field, the squad stuff that gives me question marks. And with all that thrown in alongside what I've sort of just laid out, I could make better cases for other teams. So may look very silly. I actually had them as low as 10th.
Okay, well, look, we're not going to beat around the bush anymore. I'm going to come to each of you now to build a case for your title winners. Dickie, I'm going to come back to you to start with. Where's your money?
I've gone for Macclesfield. I think Macclesfield, with the FA Cup run they enjoyed last year, and the extra revenue that's generated for them, I think they've brought in a lot of quality. I think they are used to being that team that everybody wants to beat. They've been that for a little while, and I think they're kind of. I don't think they've lost very much appreciably, and I think they've gained. I think they've added. There was a couple of players came in from Fylde. I mean, I think McFadden was one of the fullbacks. I know they've taken Amar Dyer, who was right back at Telford last season. He was excellent. Aidan George is probably going to find himself as a backup striker to Danny Elliott, but assuming Elliott's injury problems are over from the end of last season, and I would think within that team, Aidan George is probably good for 15 goals a season. So I just think they've got probably a bit of everything that you need. And whilst I'm not sure that they are fully full-time this season. If they're not, they're certainly moving very close towards it. They're hybrid if they're not full-time. I just feel that there are perhaps fewer question marks around them than anybody else, really. I was impressed with them when I saw them last season, despite the fact that Telford took 4 points off them. They came on strong towards the end of the season and got into the playoffs, and I think their aspirations are higher than that. I think they want to go higher. I think they will go higher.
Well, I've got Macclesfield in my top 4 as well. I'm not going to reveal which team I've gone for the title yet. Christian, who have you got?
I had a Cheshire title race. I felt Macclesfield were going to just be the also-rans pushed, and I therefore went for Chester to win the league. I think it has to be their time eventually. I think the fan base has got its head around the fact, they're now quite a long-standing National League North club. I think some of that Chesterness has gone that I felt they used to be there when we used to play them with Boston. They've got an excellent manager. They've got a really strong squad. They've kept Weeks, haven't they? Jacob Hazel, if he stays fit at that level, is a real menace. He was offered the chance, or there were discussions ongoing with him, and he wanted a concrete offer. And I think he's got a home there where, again, if he stays fit, he might just fire someone to the title, and that someone could be Chester. So, yeah, I had Macclesfield as very close also rans. I kind of saw it as being a bit of a 2-horse race again, as it seems to so often be in the National League North. And I just shaded it to Chester. So please, when Dickie went Macclesfield, there's a bit of variation between us.
And Joe's got a nice smile on his face. So Dickie Macclesfield, Christian Chester even. And Joe, you've gone for?
I have to concur with Christian. I've gone for Chester. Likewise, for all the points that Christian made. I think Phil Parkinson's added really nicely. I think there's a clear plan in what the players he's bringing in. I think the only thing that may see them not win the title for me is whether or not it takes them a while to get up to speed. It was a very direct style of play under Callum McIntyre, and we know what Phil Parkinson's about. He'll get the ball down and play. And I think if they're able to implement that quickly, then I think they'll be okay. We may well see them take a little while to get up to speed, but I like the business that they've done. A couple others that Christian didn't mention. Billy Waters is always a decent player for that level. Sam Foley, really experienced in the Football League. And one that's pretty much gone under the radar in Dan Ward, signed from South Shields, formerly at Gateshead. Really good midfielder who I really like. So, they've got some good experience, a good core of players that have been in and around playoffs before. They got a couple of really exciting young prospects as well that I'm really excited to see on the wings in Jefferson, Abreu and Kofi Moore. So I think there's a nice blend there, some youth and experience, some goals. And as Christian said, they've managed to keep together a decent squad. The likes of Tom Pears, Declan Weeks, players that have been there and done it in this level. So I think it will be a little bit of time before we see the best version of Chester. But if they can stick around it at the start, then I'm going to back Chester to go all the way.
I wish that I'd gone for someone else now, because it's gone from all that exciting start to 3 out of the 4 of us picking Chester to win the division. I just like Phil Parkinson. I think he learnt a lot through his time in this division and the division above with Altrincham, and he always had them punching when he was there. Christian won't know this, but yesterday I predicted Altrincham, his former club, to go down this season because I couldn't build as strong a case for them as I could some of the others. So I've gone for Chester as well. I'm probably the least informed on the National League North, and that's probably a little bit why. They're a big club. They've got a great fan base. They had a torrid time. The whole Callum McIntyre, will he, won't he, is he, isn't he, is he, it was horrible, wasn't it? And I bet they're glad to get that behind them, have a good, solid manager, good togetherness, good signings, a good season, and Chester should be right up there. All right, who else have we got? Nobody's mentioned South Shields to me yet. They were right up there last year. I strongly consider them for my top 4. Let's come back to you, Dickie. Do they appear in your top 7?
They do. I've gone for them to finish 4th this season. I think they've lost. Well, Ian Watson going as manager, going to Rochdale is obviously a bit of a blow, but Mike Williamson there, so you would figure that, not necessarily the impact you've got from losing the manager there. But I think they've still got the goals of Paul Blackett, but I think losing Will Jenkins to me is a big one from the midfield. I thought he was instrumental for them when I saw them last season, and he's followed his manager to Rochdale. I know they've signed Kanye Lashabella, who I watched for a season at Telford last season. Very different sort of player to Jenkins. So how that might change the way they go about things. I'm not saying it will be any better, any worse, just different. But I think there's just enough, not exactly upheaval, but I think there've been enough changes there for perhaps me not to consider them as being. I think they'll be up there, but I don't think they'll go as close as it did last season.
All right. And Joe, who have you got in your kind of strong kind of second place or potentially playoff winners, whichever way you've looked at it?
Unsure as to who will win it, but in terms of who I've got second, I've gone for Brackley. I really like Andy Wing. I've said that before on the pod. I know it didn't go very well for him last season in taking over Brackley, but I think that's part indebted to the fact that, when you've got a manager that wants to get the ball down and play and be really attacking, and you take over from a team built to play Gavin Cowan's football, I think it's very different. Gavin Cowan is very direct, very defensive. He's very good at getting results, but it's a very different style to Andy Wing. He's had a lot of change in the summer. He's brought in his own players, some experience in there. Charlie Cooper, I think, is probably the pick of the signings for them. Really, really good midfielder who did brilliantly at Kidderminster last year, who I was a little bit surprised they didn't re-sign in the summer. But yeah, I think they've added quite nicely. They've got goals. They've managed to keep Matt Lowe, who I thought may well go to a National League team, given that they went down in the summer. So Yeah, I'm going to go second for Brackley for them, because I think that they've got a very good manager. They've backed him well. And even though it's a lot of rebuilding, I think that they'll be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I've got Brackley finishing third. And, with Andy Wing at Brackley, I think there's some similarities with Billy Rowley going in at Yeovil in the division above, in that they had to kind of just get through it last season. And I don't think either of them inherited sides that played football the way they like to play football. And I expect both clubs and both managers to do better this season. Christian, what about yourself? Who have you got finishing second in the National League North?
Second, Maxfield, as we mentioned earlier. I then had Brackley in third. I was actually at Brackley when Boston, not mathematically, but pretty much relegated them in April. And the mood, beyond the fact they've just been relegated, was dreadful. I don't think there's a great deal of patience there unless things have changed in the summer. I think they really need a fast start, and I think they will get it. I think Joe explained that really well. I think Andy Wing is a good manager, particularly at this level, for a team that will be expected to win a lot of games and a fan base that's used to winning a lot of games. Let's not forget, every year Brackley made the playoff final, they had to win 25 to 30 games to get there. So it's a fan base that's been used to getting regular results and will expect it again. I think they will get there. My also rounds, when you asked at the start, 4 or 5 that could win it, my other 2 were South Shields and then Oxford City. I had slightly missed the summer Oxford City have had. I think they look really, really bright. There's some good business there. I believe they've gone full time. It's a long journey for everyone to make in that north down to Oxford. Maxted in goal, Scott Pollock, Franciette. These aren't necessarily names I expected to see at Oxford City this season or at all. And they're there. And I think they might just fly under people's radars. Until about 6 hours ago, they were flying under mine.
Yeah, fair play. Good shout. Just wrap up for us, Christian, while you've covered most of them. Anyone else that's in your top 7 that you haven't mentioned yet, please?
Yes, I said it was the two Cheshire clubs and then those next 3. I really, really struggled then. I had a band of 6 who was going to squeeze into the playoffs. I went Scarborough. I think coming back into the town's a big boost. They have retained some key performers. And then I think Buxton, if they do some good business, will get in there. I think they've got a bit of work to do. Obviously, had the loss of the staff member this week, which will very much have disrupted things, and their minds will be on looking after their family and honouring all of that in the right way. So, in the absence of that evidence yet with Buxton's recruitment, I actually put Hensford in there. They're going to expect to do big things this year. They've got a very good squad. I didn't see them beat Boston 2-0 on Saturday. I couldn't make that journey. Haven't really heard a lot about the game. Good setup, a team that we were used to having in this division, used to regularly make playoffs, back with a bit more behind them, I think. And to briefly throw the names out that I had as also rounds, it was Buxton, Spalding, Morecambe, and then I think there's some chaos merchants at Harborough. They could do absolutely anything. I think they'll challenge. I think they will just miss out. So yeah, Chester Mac, and then Brackley, South Shields, Oxford, and then I had Hensford and Scarborough after a lot of agony, squeezing in above the best of the rest.
And Dickie, can you just kind of wrap up your top 7, particularly where you haven't mentioned them already?
Yeah, I've got Hensford in third. I just think Hensford, I think the recruitment looks quite good. I mean, they tended to be recruiting from above rather than coming players who are on their way up, rather than the doubt I've always got about that is whether the players are going to Hensford for the right reasons. Are they going there because Hensford are paying big money, or are they going there because they want to carry on winning things? So that's a tricky one.
Project.
Yes, but what I would say is if they find out that they're not there for the right reasons, Hensford have got the financial wherewithal to make changes. So I think they will make changes if they need to. I'm not 100% convinced about Kelvin Davis as a manager, but I think there's probably enough quality in that squad anyway to, dare I say, paper over any cracks there. You've heard about my Shields in 4th, Harborough in 5th. I think Harborough have got a ridiculous squad in terms of its size. I had a look, they published their squad numbers, I think it was yesterday. They've got about 30 players. It is absolutely bonkers, but they've got some quality in there. It's a strange environment at Harborough as well. I'm not sure how easily other teams going there will take to it. and they're very used to their own environment. So Mitch Austin, he's a bit of he's another Mark White to a certain extent. He loves a bit of publicity, does Mitch? So don't worry, they will be doing things to get themselves noticed one way or another, like signing Britt Assombalonga. Again, I'm not wholly convinced by that one because similar reasons. Is he there because of the money that they're offering? I don't know. But yeah, I still think they could well be up there and they'll make things interesting in that top end. I've got them making the playoffs. I had Chester in sixth. I think Spalding United could creep in as well. I've got them in seventh. I think Spalding has similarly have got money to spend. Not sure about the depth. They certainly haven't got the depth that Harborough have, but I've put them edging out Scarborough for the last playoff place.
Brilliant stuff, Dickie. And Joe, can you wrap yours up for us?
Yeah, so the bottom three in my top seven: South Shields in fifth, Hednesford in sixth, who, if they finish sixth, I think they'll be disappointed, given the players that they've brought in. Just reading through some of them: George Langston, captain at Braintree last year; Aaron Hayden, formerly of Wrexham; Aaron Jarvis; Dale Gorman; Niall Mayer, formerly of Halifax. Ridiculously good squad. And then my surprise package in seventh is a certain team called Telford.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, he's literally put the mockers on Boston yesterday for you, Christian. Now he's done it for Dickie.
No, I'm pleased, but yeah, I'm waiting to hear what Joe thinks.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think they've retained well. Obviously, they've lost one or two. Obviously, Amir Dyer went to Macclesfield, but they did manage, I think, to keep Ollie Cawthorne, which is really important. In my opinion, probably the best centre back in the division. Certainly on what I saw last season, they've added really well in Zach Lilly as well. Real experience. Louis Moult as well. With EFL experience. I like what they've added in midfield. Last year I felt they needed to add some more quality on the ball in the midfield, and Dylan Mitchell and Sam McClintock will do that. Jack Lambert with his experience as well. And they've also added Matt Curley, who I think will be a really able replacement for Amir Dyer in signing from Tamworth. So, there's always that surprise package. I flitted between Telford and Merthyr because I think Merthyr obviously got in it last year, and they added probably one of my favourite players in non-league in Lloyd Humphreys, formerly of Eastleigh, earlier today. But I have gone with Telford. The experience of Kevin Wilkin. They had a really good first season in the National League North last year. And I think that they go into the season with a better squad than they finished last year. So why not?
Good stuff. Nothing to add in terms of points, but my top seven, for what it's worth: Chester, Macclesfield, Brackley, South Shields, Morecambe, Hednesford, and Harborough. That's my top seven. That pretty much wraps that up. Dickie, of course, with you being our National League North representative out and out, we want you to talk a little bit more about Telford at the right time. I'm not sure if they're going to come into any of our bottom fours. They're not going to come into mine. I want to just ask Christian and yourself where you've got Telford, just a position.
I went for ninth.
Right. Okay. Which is similar to last year.
It was 11th. Yeah, it was 11th last year, and my feeling was, I thought, well, I'd like to see some progression. I think there can be a progression. Can there be enough of a progression to get in the playoffs? And I suppose I also didn't want to be look particularly cocky and thinking, yeah, we'll get to the playoffs. So I went for ninth on the basis that if we do make it, I'm going to say, well, under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, spot on. And Christian, where have you got Telford?
I went 12th, very solid. I listed those teams I had as just missing out. Telford weren't in there, but they are next on the list. I think they'll clearly be perfectly fine. I felt there were better cases for the teams to gate crash the top seven, but let's go for it. And I assume this means, Dickie, that we're going to have to both say Torquay are winning the league tomorrow now.
Quite possibly.
Listen, Christian, if that were true, then I'd be predicting Telford for the bottom four as Dickie did with Aldershot yesterday. But I'm not going to do it. I've also got Telford bang in fact upper mid table. I've got them 12th. So technically that's top half, Dickie. All right, it's always a tricky subject, and I know we always do it with heavy heart. It's really difficult to find sides to say, I think they'll go down before a ball's kicked. Everybody's got hope. Everybody's got optimism. And everybody's living at the moment for that first game, which is less than a week away. Of course, now, as we record this, it'll be a few days away by the time this comes out. Let's change it around a little bit, Christian, and start with you first. Give us your bottom four. I'm not too worried about what positions you've got them. It's tough enough saying they're going to go down without saying they're going to finish last or whatever. Who's gonna drop for you?
I did struggle. I thought there was a lot of teams. To be honest, 10 of the teams, I kind of went, they'll be all right. I don't think they'll go up, but they'll be fine. And that maths just doesn't work. So I had to shock a little bit. I've got a theory that teams that stick around in this division a long time, look at Alfreton and Curzon last year, they don't suddenly go up. They tend to suddenly drop. And I worry about Southport in that sense. They've got a bit of talent, but a couple of injuries, been in this league a long while and not really challenged at the top end. You could put Spennymoor and Chorley in that category. I haven't. It's Southport I've gone for. I worry about Radcliffe's second half of last season finishing, dragging through into this. Question marks over the manager. I struggled to build a better case for them than most of the teams. So I had them in 21st, Southport 22nd, and probably two bits of ignorance on my part, but I wonder if this is one too many for Marine. And then Hebden. Every year we have one. Rushall didn't prove to be the case. Needham Market did. They're new to this level. I don't know a great deal about them. They've clearly got players that have served them very well at step 3. I don't know. I struggled. Maybe it's lazy. I put them 24th. So I was Radcliffe, Southport, Marine and Hebden.